Hello, everybody. My name is Kanika Chaturvedi. I'm a high school senior in Connecticut, USA. I welcome Dr. Chinmay Pandya, who is the grandson of Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya, or as we call him, Guru Devji. He is the Pro Vice Chancellor of Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyala University. He was trained in the UK and earned his membership of the Royal College of Psychiatrists. He has worked as the Associate Specialist in the Older People Services at the West London Mental Health Trust at the British National Health Service. He has managed patients with several psychiatric disorders and focused on the treatment of dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. He's a very qualified person as we start this conversation about mental health and its importance in our lives. So I will just ask you what you think about mental health.
It's the most important dimension at the moment, Kanika. I think, the kind of era that we are living in, where the life has turned into a very high pace kind of situation. Before people start to begin the journeys of their life, there are so many expectations, so many pressures of doing well in the school, pressures of doing well in the different, dimensions of the life, from physical to sports to creative aspects to innovation, scientific aspects to relationships, and everywhere the people are actually facing the pressure and stress that was kind of unprecedented, never thought of before. And in such situations, what becomes of greatest importance is the balance within, is the equipoise, calmness, stillness, stability, and my commitment and devotion for my own personal growth. And that all comes under the umbrella of the mental health. Like normally people think about the mental disorders as the mental health, but we need to think it in the perspective of not abnormality or not in the terms of aberration, but in the terms of how a normal person, how a sane person can continue enjoying the life without feeling the pressures of it. There is a very beautiful saying. I don't know whether that comes under the remit of the question, but there is a very beautiful saying that comes in the Bhagavad Gita. It's the second chapter, 62nd and 63rd words. And in my opinion, that defines the entire, the psychological domain as we speak. He says, Dhyato Vishyanupunsha Sangasteshu Pajayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodho Pajayate. Krodhat Bhavat Sammoha Sammohad Smriti Vibrama. Smriti Bhanshash Buddhinashu Buddhinashat Pranashyate. So what he's saying, if I am thinking about an object again and again, if my inner being is in pursuit of finding something, more and more I think about it, more and more there is a desire to have it. More I have the desire, more I have an attachment. If there is a desire, there would be a desire to have it, to possess it. And that leads to the attachment. Wherever there is an attachment, there is a fear of rejection, because I want something, but that thing may or may not want me. Or even if, say for example, I want something, but that thing may have a very different perception. So maybe I want to have money, but I never thought that with money, what kind of problems would come. Maybe I wanted to have a particular person in relationship, but then the other person may have a very different understanding of the relationship. So it's like, the two sides of the same coin. And then he says that leads to fear, because I have an anticipatory fear that what I am thinking, I may not get it. And moment I have that kind of anticipatory fear of losing it or not having it, that leads to bewilderment, leads to confusion, that leads to a broken personality. And broken personality, he says, can never have a sane mental health. Then you are broken. You are a fragmented personality. It's gone into different pieces. And for I to have absolute calmness, for I to have a clear direction in the life, I need to have a balanced mental state that Lord Krishna talks about in Gita, and that can have, or that I can have, only by having the balanced approach in the life.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful explanation. And I just took kind of the dictionary definition And mental health is kind of defined as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, which is what you talked about, right? Like if we understand what our desires are, we kind of like cut back on them sort of, because once we get attached, we tend to like hyper fixate on it, and we want that thing, we only think about that thing, and that can lead to a downfall of our mental health, because now we're not balancing ourselves, we're only thinking about that one thing. So my personal definition kind of also goes along with that. My personal definition is very simple. I think it's mental health is defined as when your mind is at balance with itself. So when you're in harmony with yourself and with others and your surroundings, that is how your mental health should be at its peak. But obviously today, we see a lot of students going after grades and getting running after scores and their exams and whatnot, so they can get into a good university, make good money. And I see that as a society, we've lost passion for what we really want to do. And that also affects a lot of our mental health, because we're not able to realize what's good for us anymore. We just want to simply go after the collective group, which is what the collective group thinks is money. So I am also in the process of going to college and applying and all of that. And I've realized that one of the most things I've struggled with is anxiety. And that comes from, it's not easy, but that comes from, I've worked so hard throughout my high school years, throughout the 4 years, that I want to make sure that I'm going to the best university. But, having these conversations helps me realize that my passion is to help people. Like at the end of the day, I want to work for humanity. So whether I go to a good college or not doesn't matter, as long as at the end of the day, whether I'm 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old, I'm working for humanity and helping the world become a better place one day at a time. So um, I even when I was a freshman, when I was 14 or 15, I did not think about all of that stuff. I was very much focused on my grades in school, and that I can speak from personal experience piqued a lot of my anxiety. It was horrible because I was hyper fixated on grades. That's all I cared about. And all I cared about, my vision was very one-sided. All I cared about was getting into a good college, Harvard, top university of US, or Columbia, all of the Ivy Leagues. But I've had having these conversations, I think, help people understand that passion and money are two different things. Passion and getting what you want are two different things. So yeah, and I would just like to hand it off to you again and have you talk more about how you've dealt with patients who go through similar experiences.
Mm, I think we don't even have to think about Kanika, about the patients anymore. What you are talking about is a classic example of how we are burdening people with the anxiety even before they start their life journeys. And it's not actually coming from inside you, it's coming from the expectations, it's coming from the peer pressure, it's coming from the bar that has been set by the society. Like, I am trying to fulfill the dreams. I and you and so many other people are actually in this kind of weird race where we have been expected to fulfill the expectations that were set by the other people. They are not even our inner call expectation. Your inner call is very clear. You are saying that you want to do something for humanity. You want to be a decent human being. You want to do something that would leave an impact upon the generations. You want to create a legacy. And the world, it wants you to make money. So like, that's where the conflict is. The conflict is because the role models that we have set in the eyes of the people where one is supposed to search for. So like, if we are looking for the people who are so-called influencers and other such people where the inner call is not there, but like, people are reaching to a certain position by earning money or by like, by showing off as much as they are. the life becomes a very strange kind of race. And if you see, like, if you just step out of this conversation and see how the world is defining the progress, and world is defining the progress, rather world I would call society. The society is defining the progress on the basis of competition, not on the basis of what you accomplish, but on the basis of what you have accomplished, how it is in compared to the other people. You have got house, not enough. Whether it is big enough, whether it is bigger than the other people. And if it is like, then which part of the world it is? You live in Haridwar, or you live in Delhi, or in Delhi, where do you live? You live in Shadra, or you live in Greater Kailash. Greater Kailash you live, then which phase do you live? Then how big is your house? What kind of like, watch you are wearing? What kind of shoes you are wearing? What is the brand of like, car that you have taken? All these have become synonymous with the progress. So then who would think about inner contentment? If this is the race that I am supposed to be in, then I would always have a, a disintegrity, a dissociation between the expectation and reality. And that is going to give me nothing but the stress and tension and a imbalanced kind of mental state. There comes a very beautiful story. I don't know whether you have heard. It's written by a famous Russian author called Maxim Gorky, called 6 Feet Underground. A story about a man, like, he heard from somewhere that in Siberia, they are giving land for free. So he said, I should have it. He went there and he asked the elder of the village, he said, are you giving land for free? He said, yeah, yeah, for free. He said, and what do I have to do to get it? He said, nothing. Come tomorrow morning, the sun would rise. We give you 4 flags. You take them, run as far as north you can, and then plant the first one, second in the east, third in the west. South we are standing, but you need to be here before the sun would set, and whatever you cover belongs to you. He said, that's it. I said, yeah. He said, how come no one has won anything so far? He said, you run tomorrow morning, and then you will know. So next day morning, the sun rose and they gave him 4 flags. He started to run, and more he ran, more greedy he became. He said, oh, all belongs to me. I need to go as far as possible. So he then started to like, he threw away his lunch. He said, I can go far. He threw away his water. He said, I can go far. And then he ran. 2 o'clock, he remembered I was supposed to plant a flag, planted one, east another one, west another one. Gorky has written then that, he was running without food and water, energy was gone. Sun was setting. He collapsed 6 feet before the finish line. When he regained the consciousness, village was there. They were clapping. They said, oh, you came too far. All became so greedy, they never returned. They're still planting the flags. So he said, what would you do with this piece of land that's left between my, like, fingertip and the finish line? He thought that they probably would give him for free. He said, we are waiting for you to die. We will dig your grave here. That's the only land you take. 6 feet underground. That's what he called this story, Gorky. So that's the only land people take, but they are running like, non-stop. Nobody can, like, overrun the last stop or last destination. But don't you think, like, that our lives have become so much mechanical in this approach that the real things that are the, like, definition of the life, personality, calmness, happiness, even the smile on the face, even the, like, little pleasures with the family and friends, everything is being evaluated on the terms of um, external satisfaction, and that is coming from what you said so rightly in your question, that this pressure is coming from outside, where, like, we are running after this bar set by the society that you're supposed to go to the Ivy League, you're supposed to go to these schools, and there is no harm in that, but that should not come at the cost of your inner calmness and inner call. They both can coexist if we are able to give a right direction to the people. There is an approach that I suggest to the people, and that approach may be helpful for your listeners. That there are 3 things in life. Duty. Duty is determined by my education. my qualification, my knowledge, my skills, my experience. So my background is a psychiatry. Maximum I can work is in psychiatry, mental health here and there. But I cannot work as a gastroenterologist. I cannot work as a, so even my job becomes limited. What I can do, if I do my duty right, then I get my financial security and stability in the life. I can do other things. Higher than the duty is the passion. Passion is where my, like, where my interests lie. That's different than the hobbies. Hobbies we have for more or less like passing the time. But passion is something that we do to cherish the time. We want to enjoy. So somebody comes at 12 o'clock and says that you want to do it, and I'm ready to do it. So that's what my passion is. And somebody can be an engineer, but their passion could be in music. Their passion could be in art and dancing and in any other creative element. Higher comes to that is the purpose. But if I do my passion right, then what comes? Then comes the satisfaction. Duty may or may not give me the satisfaction. Passion would give the satisfaction. Higher than that is the purpose, is where the soul would like to go. If I do that right, I get the fulfillment. In Hindi, we call that as purnata. Problem occurs, and this is the main thing that I want to say. When I want to find all three in one place, that's what the people make the mistake. They try to think that their duty should also be their passion, but it should also be their purpose. It does not have to be. I can do my duty, like, as a responsibility. Very beautiful word is there in the Bharatiya scriptures, Indian scriptures, kartavya, that I can do it like a kartavya. It's my duty, it's my obligation to the society, it's my obligation to the family, it's my obligation to myself. I can do it, and I can do it with the righteous purpose. But I also need to find time for my passion. And I should also find time for my inner call, my purpose. Otherwise, I would be unfulfilled, unsatisfied. Maybe earning the money, but I still won't have the satisfaction, gratification, and fulfillment. If all three are approached in a diligent manner, a dutiful manner, then I think the solution is there. It is possible to find the balance that you talk about without feeling anxious.
Yeah. So I just want to further the point. Can you tell me how passion is different from purpose?
Passion is something, purpose is unique to an individual. Passion can be replicated. So, like, many people can have passion about music, art, dance, sports, traveling, hiking. Like, many people can have. Purpose is something that can not be copy and pasted. So, it's a divine call. It's a divine agenda that's been gifted to every individual soul. So, what would come to Mira, it won't be replicated in Chaitanya. What would come in Buddha would not be replicated in Gurudev. What would come in Mahavir would not be replicated in Vivekananda. What would come in Jesus Christ would not come in Saint Francis de Assisi. They are, like, they are unique in their own unique calls. That's their divine manifestation. So it is based on the concept that each one of us has got a divine manifestation waiting inside for it to be, like, unveiled and unleashed. And that manifestation of divinity within is my purpose. I know it or I don't know it is a different question. Most people don't know it. They follow their own intuition based on their intention. If intention is right and they seem to get a right kind of support from the cosmos for it to happen, then they follow it. But our intention is the key. Our intention should be righteous. Our intention should be to do good for humanity. Our intention should be good, to do something good for other. It should not be hurtful to anyone, and it should be helpful to each possible soul. Then it takes the right path.
Right. And so going back to the topic of external factors, I also feel like we should bring about how parents also have a very, you know, have very high expectations of their children at this day and age, because everybody seems to be fighting over who's the best and comparing their children, and just how does that water down to the child's health as a whole, and how does that affect them finding their passion, them finding their purpose? Because a lot of these days we see children only doing what their parents have told them to do. Like if your parent tells you to become a doctor and you go through 4 years of bachelor's, 4 years of medical school, then residency, then all of that, just to realize that, oh, I didn't want to become a doctor, but I've spent so much of my time in my life becoming a doctor that I'm now unhappy and I'm not satisfied. So how does the parent's position in a child's life affect their well-being and all that?
That is so true, Kanika. I think that's the major issue. But when I was talking about the pressures from society, pressures from parents, pressures from even the peers and the school administration, to even the media and newspapers and everything else, talking about that pressure only, like, that of course the pressure is coming from parents, and that kind of uh, the solution to that does not lie in trying to convince them of what is the right path and what is not the right path, because one would be able to show what is the right path only if you are successful enough, and that may take time. I know one very good member of the Gayatri Parivar who got, like, very good degree from Cambridge in law, was part of a very successful law firm, but he had a call that he wanted to start a leadership institution. It started with the kids, and of course, parents were not happy that, he got such a wonderful position, wonderful institution, and now he's leaving that to start the training for the kids. But he did. Now his organization is one of the finest in England. But it took him to, like, prove that about 25 years or so. I saw a gentleman 3 days ago. He wanted to create a private electrical substation to help the village. He's 86 years old. He created the first private electric substation at the age of 86. And whole his life, he was, like, rejected by the people. That this idea is crap. Nobody's gonna, and who's gonna do it in the way, like, even the road is not reaching. That's what people used to say. That even if you want to do it, then do it in Delhi or do it in, like, Bombay. But who's gonna do it in the distant village of Uttarakhand hills? But it is possible, like, that kind of pressure that comes from the parents, rightly or wrongly. Um, Rightly or wrongly, I said, because many people are not doing it because they want to overburden their kids. It's because they think that they know what is right, and some circumstances they also are right. But I think that's open to discussion. But if person has got very, like, clear and astute call from inside, then they should follow it. They should follow it. There is only way to solve that kind of dilemma is allowing time to actually pass and you to find your own rhythm, call, and be successful in what you want. I'm afraid that and this battery may go any moment, Kanika.
Yeah, I think our time is up soon enough too, so I will just try to wrap up everything that we've talked about. Um, so in this session, we just discussed how mental health is important in terms of how we influence ourselves from outside pressures and external factors. So moving forward, I think whoever's listening to this podcast should keep in mind that whatever your inner beliefs are and whatever you value, as long as they are on the right intentional path, you should follow them, and you shouldn't stress about what other people will think about you. I know that's a huge thing in our society where we put our satisfaction into what other people think about us. So if there's one thing that people can start doing from now is try to put one thing where you satisfy yourself from within you, not others.
Like
Um,
Gurudev said, and sorry for interruption, it's
no.
like Gurudev said that believe that you are the most valuable person in the world and live accordingly.
Yes, I'm part of Gayatri Parivar too. I learned from a bunch of Parisians at Denver, and one of them, that the auntie, I don't know if you know her, but she always used to tell us that we are our biggest rakshas, we're our biggest demons. But we have to, it is so important in life that we learn to love ourselves and love others, because that is how we grow as individuals. And that is essentially part of the Yug Nirman mission that Gurudev Ji paved for us. So that is a wonderful note to leave on. And thank you so much for joining us.